What is up, YouTube? My name is David Lee and I'm Asian with Hat, and today we're going to be reviewing the Paragon Armory EDGI Airsoft clone. Now, this is not a pure Airsoft clone, as I've had to put on my own creature comforts, like saying so, a light bar, knockoff cat corn cob, and then some other small things. But this is something that a lot of people are very interested in if you are, in the impressionist community. For those of you guys that are gear whores, you guys might also appreciate this too. In the airsoft world, it is generally difficult to look for and consider a clone build, saying so, that is also very well upgraded. Most people that try and build upgraded guns, you generally can't find these upgraded, and most of the times these come out stock. And I don't believe there's actually many people out there that are doing EDGI builds, and I say people, manufacturers. One thing to mention on here, there's a whole list of parts on here. We'll leave it in the description down below for all the parts, but to say the least, this thing has been souped from the ground up when it comes to the gearbox. Everything when it comes to the VFC gearbox in here, there's nothing that is left of a VFC gearbox in here. Pretty much they're using a base of just a retro orange gearbox and then going from there. So what you get on here is not just a VFC gearbox. You don't get a VFC gearbox, you get a whole set of a brand new engine and essentially what you would consider a Supra or a R34. For those of you guys that don't understand that, in the airsoft world, we have a lot of things that go on with an airsoft gun. If you are, I would say, if you are a person that shoots airsoft long enough, you'll realize that there are definitely some weak points to some airsoft guns. But I'll definitely say that if you have been using a stock gun, where have you been for the last, decade? So, using a stock gun, if you're still using that, you might want to consider trying to get some upgrades done. But if you are a person that doesn't have the time to actually just drop your gun off and get it upgraded, there are people out there that can actually have a gun pre-built, an airsoft gun pre-built, for you guys to actually purchase. And Paragon Armory is one of them. There's many other people out there, but what makes Paragon Armory different is that they tend to do a lot of clone builds and upgrade the parts. Michael contacted me and sent me the gun. I told him it would be a very long process just because of my schedule, but when I get to it, I'm going to have a decent idea of what to tell you guys. Never to say the least, when I review these airsoft guns, I tend to put a lot of time and thought into what I want to say about it, especially trying to find weak points on it. There's been a couple of weak points that I found and discovered and addressed it with Michael, and I believe on the rest of the production guns that he has for these airsoft guns, you will not have the issues that I've had. Let's just do a trigger pull so that way you guys actually, pull the trigger and let you guys actually have an understanding of how it sounds. When it comes to the MOSFET, I know a lot of people like to call it a MOSFET. It's not really called a MOSFET. I believe it's called an ETU. So let's just pull the trigger. So on the ETU, it is actually a gate Titan. So let's go ahead and pull the trigger. And then also let's put on full auto. So with that being said, using this airsoft gun for the last year, this is actually a very fun gun to use. I've handed this off to many friends of mine to actually let them shoot and get their own opinions on it. And they were almost immediately after asking, where did I get this gun? Where did I get this airsoft gun? Where can I buy it? For me, I've been shooting and upgrading a lot of airsoft guns over the last couple of years. And the last couple of years, because of how busy I've been getting with cinematography and camera work, I just don't have the time to actually upgrade guns myself. But being the fact that I know how airsoft guns work, I have an okay position or a decent position to actually have an opinion. So, that being said, this to me feels like a lot of the airsoft guns I've used in the past. There's some things that I've never done in the past, like use Siegetek gears, and this has a set of Siegetek gears in here. I want to say they're 10-to-1 gears. Might be wrong on that. Yep, 10-to-1 gears. So he's using 10-to-1 gears in here, and then the spring in here, which is actually pretty interesting. If I'm reading this correctly, it's a Garter SP110 spring, and the end goal of our setup over here is to at least reach 390 FPS. For him to do an M110 spring and still hit 390 FPS, that's pretty incredible. That's still incredible that he's able to get that much compression out of this gun. That might have to do with the combination of the barrel in here being maybe a Type 4. I want to say, let's see, what's the list on here? Oh yeah, EDGI stainless steel inner barrel. So that is a Japanese spec barrel in here. So using a high-end Japanese aftermarket barrel, you'll most likely get a lot more consistency out of your compression from the BB to the barrel, and then along with the compression components in the gearbox. Some other things to mention here for compression parts, he's using a let's see, a Lonex POM piston head, so that's a polymer piston head. And then for the air nozzle, he's using the stock VFC air nozzle in here. And then on top of it, what's the cylinder head? The cylinder head is a garter. So a lot of good parts in here to go with the compression parts. And I wouldn't be shocked being the fact that Michael has been around building airsoft guns for quite some time, and he does it more on the side, but he wants to take this to the point that at least helps the guys that are in the impressionist community, or the people that want to get something that looks like a URGI, and some other setups. He doesn't just do the URGI. I believe he also does some other clone guns, and he's actually looking at some other clone guns in the future. We've been talking about seeing if he can do you know, Knights Armament style airsoft guns, or saying so SR-15s, SR-16s for airsoft guns, and having them very souped up, so that way you have a more, I wouldn't say realistic would be the right term, but basically a more snappy airsoft gun. Because this is not a, you know, gun that actually has bolt lockout. This actually just has a faux bolt, and when you hit the bolt catch, that closes. So, and the whole goal, of course, you know, with the bolt catch over here and locking it back, is that you can adjust the hop up. Now, as you can see in the hop up over here, we have a Prometheus hop up unit with a rotary knob to actually adjust, or rotary dial to actually adjust your hop up with a lot more fine tuning. So this gives you a lot more fine tuning and reference to actually dial down your hop up. And one thing to mention on the hop up, I want to say he's using an R-hop, a classic method for a lot of barrels out there. If you're wanting a lot of range and consistency to your range, you would use an R-hop. Now, that being said, there's some advancements in the last couple of years for R-hops, and using R-hops, that being said, is, I would say, in my opinion, the general golden standard for getting range out of these airsoft guns, or AEGs. Now, if I was to mention another thing, we've been talking about some other things that he's been doing in his modern guns, or the guns since, or the guns that he's been producing now compared to last year. He's actually changed his style for using an R-hop, and he's gone to, I want to say, a different design for an R-hop, where it actually has more of a window on the R-hop. But I won't go too much in the weeds, because you're not here for me to actually tell you all the in the weeds stuff. But the long story short is, your range on the R-hop with the barrel, you're going to get a lot of consistency out of your range. And most of the time when I'm engaging, I don't try and shoot for 100 yards. Most of my engagements are within about 50 to 70 yards at most, just because there's no point in just trying to shoot 100 yards with, you know, an electric airsoft gun. Now, if I was using a bolt gun or saw, that's where I would really honestly consider, you know, trying to shoot for 100 yards. But it's not worth shooting for 100 yards unless you really have the shot, and, you know, the airsoft community is willing to actually call their hits in a lot of good cases. But, you know, benefit of the doubt, 100 yards, it's hard to hit someone with them actually possibly calling their hit consistently. It is what it is. Now, for his motor, he's using his own design of a high torque motor, and it's a very, very high torque motor. I cannot stress that enough. For the last decade, for me, I've been using 22 TPA motors. He designs his own and has a manufacturer do it to his design, and he does a 28 TPA motor. Now, if you're wanting the equivalent and you're wanting to know what that is, that would be, I want to say, the ASG. It's a low RPM one. I want to say it's 18K. That would be the equivalent. But the long story short is, if you understand your TPA, or turns per armature, 28 TPA is a very, very slow turning motor for these airsoft guns. A lot of the high speed motors are about, I want to say, 14 to 12 TPA, maybe 10 TPA. Not really good for this setup, just because this is meant to be more of a snappy build, to where on semi, when you pull the trigger, it's designed to where you get a more fast response or a fast turnover on the gears. So you want a faster turnover on the gears at 28 TPA. 22 was the decent compromise. And then I want to say for gears, again, 10 to 1 gears. So with that combination, you're going to get a snappy turnaround for your response on the semi-auto. So some other things that you can do, you know, being the fact this is a gate tightened ETU, you can actually tune the ETU to how you want it. And I say ETU, again, most people know it as a MOSFET. Most modern people, or especially the techs out there, don't want to hear it's a MOSFET. It's usually called an ETU for a reason. Now, if you're wanting to know what is an actual MOSFET, it would be the Crytek MOSFETs, because those are the ones that are truly designed to actually regulate and not return back some of the over voltage to the battery. But that's a whole nother story. But the long story short is, with a gate ETU, or gate tighten ETU, you can actually tune it by having a special accessory to actually use on the back end of the cable over here to the ETU, and then you have a computer. So I want to say you have to use a Windows computer and then use the gate software, and then you can fine tune how you want the trigger response and some other minute things. For instance, if you want to do a semi lockout on here, you can do a semi lockout where the auto settings just sets a semi, and then this one sets a semi. Some other things on here you can do is saying, so you can actually, I want to say you can actually disable the full auto to off. Don't quote me on that. Another crazy one that you can do, and I don't recommend it for some fields, is you can actually do a binary setting. Some, if not most fields, do not actually allow the binary setting, but if your field allows it, you know, you can actually have that. I don't use it just because I am actually really good at my trigger discipline, and I don't believe that you should be shooting for the sake of shooting. Hey guys, we're at Copperhead right now, and we wanted to talk about some updates that happened with the Paragon gun after our long-term review. So Michael over here is the owner of Paragon Armory, and he had some things that were done with it that makes it a better rifle overall. So what are some things that you guys did to it?
Yeah, let's kind of like start with like our, you know, first iteration of like the Paragon URGI.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the things, you know, remain. So we have like the HAL Mark 16 M-LOK rail, the Colt trademark receiver, OEM by VFC. So the external fit and finish and the quality is going to be just absolutely phenomenal, especially for a cloner or an impressionist. You're going to really enjoy this gun. But in the first generation, we came out with a 28 TPA custom motor, 10-1 Siegetek gears, and gate tightens, as well as some other minor compression parts differences.
And that was intentionally to keep the latency down.
Right. So the builds are catered towards like trigger response and milsim. So
exactly,
milsim West, Copperhead, or American milsim, things like that. Really wanted to have that instant trigger response.
Yep.
And at that time, that was like the best that you could get.
Or the industry standard in general.
Exactly, exactly. So
something changed in the last year, right?
Right. So there's been a big
awakening.
Like a big boom with airsoft motors. So brushless motors have come out.
Yep.
So you'll see like Warhead, T238, and all these other brands. And we personally use T238 in our builds. They're just insanely fast, responsive, and battery efficient. So it was a no-brainer to make the switch. We are going to be coming out with a custom brushless motor that's Paragon Spec with some nice improvements. So those will be standard on the guns pretty soon. But right now, T238 brushless motor, Jeftron Leviathan MOSFETs.
Which is actually a good thing, because I used to actually love BTC Spectres. Unfortunately, they disappeared somehow. Right. And then Gate Titans, they filled the gap, but unfortunately you don't really have a feel out of the trigger. Yep. But that's the one thing that the Jeftron fixes, right?
Yeah, 100%. So the Jeftron Leviathans, they have a tactile micro switch.
So you get the trigger reset.
Exactly. So you can, you know, bump fire or, you know, fine tune the trigger to be as long or as short as you'd like. And you have that tactile sensation like, okay, I know,
right, you
know, I'm actuating the gun, right? Versus like an electronic safety, you're kind of just like doing this and you're like, kind of like hoping the gun's going to cycle. So also with the Leviathan, it's just a way more robust unit. It's not as temperamental with like humidity, moisture, heat, cold, all that kind of stuff. And it's just way more durable.
The BTC Spectre, but better.
Yeah, BTC Spectre, but on steroids. There's been rumors about Frank coming out with the Mark III Spectre, but
that never happened.
It's vaporware at this point, guys.
Right.
But yeah, Leviathan's awesome. Like, you get all of the features. You can program everything through your phone. Like, it's the bee's knees, 100%.
Right. So we actually have a guy over here that can give a more deep input from his perspective, and that's our special friend, Spec Mojo.
Hello, friends. Okay, so yeah, we had talked, and I was asking you like, so I'm an airsoft guy, but I'm more of a real steel kind of guy, right? So I was like, all right, I wanted a gun that was like legit. So I reached out to him like, hey, what makes your guns different? And he's like, man, how nerdy do you want me to get? I'm like, well, kind of give me the lamest terms. And he was like, hey, we use quality parts. This will shoot faster, and it'll shoot more consistent and more accurate than every other gun you've ever shot. I'm like, okay, this makes sense. I'm like, all right, cool. And he's like, all right, cool. So he ended up building me a gun. He ended up building me a gun. When we started shooting this thing, the moment I put the battery in it, first of all, the trigger response is the first thing I noticed. Like how you're just talking about, like the tactile. So even when it's on safe, I can feel that there's a point right about here. where it clicks and I can hear like essentially I feel like a trigger disconnect or a trigger connect and a disconnect. So I like that. The second thing I noticed was obviously like the fact, I don't even know how this works, but dude, it sounds like an HPA gun. It cycles so quickly, and it's one of the few guns that can keep up with my trigger finger. All the other guns in the market, I have to wait for the gun to cycle, where I pull the trigger too fast, where I hear the winding of the gears.
And you miss the timing.
And then the gun never goes off. So I've noticed that. And then also when you talked about accuracy, this is the first time I've been able to legitimately zero an actual, because I'm running, like this is like actually my duty gun. I have a black URGI at work. I run a mod light. I run a B.E. Myers Mall DA, aimpoint Comp M5 with a Unity riser, and this is my magnifier for my work gun. So I wanted to set this up to be similar to the gun that I use on duty. I put real optics on it, so I put my aimpoint on it. I was able to zero it.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
It's cool. I was able to zero it consistently, and then this weekend I would see people, I put red dot on target, I pull a trigger, and they go like this.
And it works like well with your laser too at night.
Oh, dude, yeah, I have a bunch of night vision footage that you'll have as well too. Literally at night, and you were running around with us too. Like the laser illuminator would go on, and I would just fucking zip like a bill drill, put 6 rounds into a target, and you'd see their hand go up. And it was such a great feeling. This is well worth, like all the guys saw it and they were like, I want one now too. I'm like, yeah, damn right you do.
Yeah.
This thing shoots well, man. Again, I don't know deep into the specs of what these guns entail and how they're built, but I do know that this gun it changed it for me today. Like this is one of the first times I went to like an airsoft event where like I had no issues with the gun at all. Feeding was perfect. Even with all the dirt and debris and all the shit covered in sand. Every time I saw somebody, I put the red dot on them, pulled the trigger, fucking raise their hand. Fucking great, dude. Oh, yeah, this gun was awesome. Dude, I seriously appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, man.
Thank you, Mojo.
You're absolutely welcome.
So is there anything else you need to say finally, like with this stuff?
Yeah. So I know like Mojo touched on a lot of it. So like the trigger response and like comparing it to like HPA, Jeff Tron actually will measure the telemetry on that, and it rivals HPA, guys. So this is like as close as you can get to like tankless HPA. Like the cycle timing on this is 20 milliseconds, and HPA is probably in the same realm as that, guys.
Yeah, even though, like, bro.
Yeah. So the entertaining factor behind it, right?
You can't beat this.
Right. So even though like we're semi-only guys, like the full auto response is also there. Like it's 33 to 35 rounds a second. So if you need to like lay down some hate, you could really do that.
So was there any updates in regards to the barrel overall? Between this build and that build?
So I've always used EDGI parts, so they're out in the Philippines. They're really well known for high-end sniper parts. So like Tokyo Marui, VSR-10. Like if you guys seen like Novrich videos, like he used like EDGI parts in his sniper videos, and as we all know, like he hits some like stupid shots in his YouTube stuff. So went to them for AEG barrels to make them out of steel to be more durable. But what really makes them special is the hand lapping process that goes through. So they hand lap them down to 1 micron, and basically what that means is like the internal finish is super smooth. It's like a mirror. So the BB just glides down the barrel.
More consistency.
Way higher consistency. It boosts FPS, but yeah, like the shot-to-shot consistency in terms of like precision, it's phenomenal. We also do custom R-hop patches. For the barrels, and then we'll use a rotary style hop up. In the old ones, we were using Prometheus. Lately, we've been doing the Maxx M4As. I think they solved a lot of problems with the old gen, and that's what's really allowing us to reach out further than other AEGs on the market. So,
yeah. Well, Michael, thank you again for getting me this gun.
Of course, man.
And I can't wait to see the upgrade that comes from the lower in the future. Because the last time I actually had something that was like that fine-tuned was back in the BTC Spectre days with all the pre-caulking. But this, like the way you have it set up, just reminds me of those days.
That's awesome.
Because we can never get that again until that.
Well, it's here now.
Yeah, it's absolutely here now. And you can get them from Paragon Armory. What is it? ParagonArmory.com?
ParagonArmory.com. Instagram Paragon_Armory.
Overall, I would say this is an impressive airsoft gun setup. Some other things to mention on here: he's using a Howe Geisley replica rail. I'm using a Magpul CTR stock on here, and I'm also using some Titan batteries in here. And the stock is all the way out, but that still works out for my length of pole. So not the most optimal setup, but you know, being the fact that I'm able to use a gate Titan on here, I mean, it says a lot. I'm sponsored by Titan, as you guys know, but if you guys want to use some other batteries, you should still be able to, and you shouldn't have any problems. Some other things that are on here, I'm also running my Siegetek EXPS 3-4, I think. I want to say it's a 3.4. Yeah, it's a 3.4. So I use the 3.4 in conjunction with a Siegetek G33, and then I run a lens protector on here. Running my classic Old Faithful Brain Exploder Run Cam 2 dual cam setup. I'm running a light bar with a Wall-Tool LH1 with a long cable to a Airsoft version of a mod light, mod button light. And personally, I wouldn't change how I'd run it. When I don't run this, I'm running a Gear PEC 15 LA5, I think. Those are pretty fun to use. I don't recommend using the Gear LA5s on real airsoft guns. I wholeheartedly believe that's not a great idea. But moving on from there, sling wise, using a Blue Force Gear 2-point Vickers sling. Vickers padded, by the way. And then finally on the grip over here, really good to use, is a PTS. I want to say it's EPG, might be wrong, but it's a one of the PTS vertical grips. By the way, something to mention on here, when using these grips, you tend to have to, when you put it on, it's not a drop-in, you still have to reshin the beveled pinion for this, because using an A2 or the stock one changes the way that the motor engages to the gearbox. Just something to note on there, and Michael does a really clean job. As far as the shims, as you guys have heard, very clean, doesn't sound like it's whining at all, and motor height wise, it's perfect for me. So aside from that, this is definitely an airsoft gun that I would recommend to people if you are wanting to find what you would consider a main squeeze for airsoft. This is one of those that you can consider. Definitely a gun that I would say would last for a couple years before you really need to consider maintenance. Every single gun has maintenance. There's no such gun that you can just shoot and there will never be issues for years to come. Even HBAs have this problem. So every once in a while, take a consideration. If you need to actually, if you think there's some problems, take it up to a tech, or take it up to send a message to Michael Willett and send off the airsoft gun, and he can get it addressed for you, and make sure that your gun's good to go. But that's pretty much it for this. I've been using this for the last year, and I've had no qualms with it. I use it with a lot of other airsoft guns. I use the GBLS, and I use my Marui, and I would put this up on par with even my Marui, especially when my Marui is one of my most favorite airsoft guns to date. But other than that, if you do have any questions, please do leave them in the comment section down below. Again, there's a lot of things that can be asked, and I'm sure that you guys will have questions when it comes to this airsoft gun. And we're going to also have Michael from Paragon Armory coming down into the comment section to actually give you guys some answers, because maybe there's some things that I can't really answer, but he can definitely answer. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you do want to check out this airsoft gun, we'll leave it in the links in the description down below. So if you guys like the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, but the most important thing of all, if you guys didn't like the video, hit the dislike button twice. Okay, my name is David Lee, and I'm Asian with Hat, and we'll see you guys in the next video.